It's impossible to be a scientist and to confront the grandeur, subtlety, elegance, and magnificence of the universe without feeling a sense of reverence and awe. It's clear to me that there are some questions that humans don't have the answers to.
Hey, Roger.
In 1996, Robert Zemeckis, Academy Award-winning director of Forrest Gump, began filming Contact, the only novel ever written by Pulitzer Prize-winning author Carl Sagan. Contact tells the story of an astronomer played by Jodie Foster, who is the recipient of the first ever signal from an alien intelligence, and the incredible chain of events that signal sets off. The book represents a lifetime of Sagan's passions, everything from the technical feasibility of intergalactic space travel to the tensions between religion and science.
Man, watching for Ellie. You've been waiting for a long time.
Ambitious, bringing it to the screen was even more so. This is the story of the making of Contact.
I anticipate, I imagine, I presume that if the statistics are correct, that we're not alone.
In the story, we make contact with another life. And in another way, it's about humans making contact with ourselves.
It's about some really intelligent issues, really intelligently told.
I think you look at the world in a different perspective when you go out to space, if you will, or to the edge of the universe and look back.
This film is, for all intents and purposes, enormous. There's lots of effects, really exciting, adventurous parts to it. There's the idea of space travel, but I think it's much, much more than that. It's really a story about people and their passions. She found a soft patch of grass and lay down. The sky was blazing with stars, thousands of them. But if something as big as the Earth turned once a day, it had to be moving at an unbelievable speed. She thought she could now actually feel the Earth turn. Not just imagine it, but really feel it in the pit of her stomach.
Is anybody out there? CQ, this is W9GFO here. CQ, CQ, this is W9GFO here. This is W9GFO. Is anybody out there? I'm not getting anything.
Small moves, Ellie. Small moves.
Carl felt that he had lived except his deepest dreams.
Contact is everything that Carl in his life has tried to present to us. And what that is, it's about us.
By finding out what the other planets are like, by finding out whether there are civilizations on planets of other stars, we reestablish a meaningful context for ourselves.
He was a child before the dawn of the space age, and then he was a scientist and experimenter on every single unmanned mission. He briefed the Apollo astronauts. The dreams of his childhood were reality in his adulthood. And Contact was one of his most cherished dreams because he wanted to convey...
And action!
Yeah, there are 400 billion stars out there, just in our galaxy alone. If only one out of a million of those had planets, all right, and if just one out of a million of those had life, and if just one out of a million of those had intelligent life, there would be literally millions of civilizations out there. Ellie Arroway is a brilliant, driven, young astronomer who's had to come up the hard way. She gets involved with the SETI program, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and starts sending signals out and hoping to receive signals from outer space. Does this for many, many years to no avail, not a single message, nothing happening. Everybody's given up on her. Nobody believes in her.
I don't consider what could potentially be the most important discovery of the human race nonsense, okay? There's 400 billion stars
and
out
only
there.
two probabilities. One, there is intelligent life out there, but it's so far away you'll never contact it in your lifetime. And
you're making a decision.
Two, there's nothing out there but noble gases and carbon compounds, and you're wasting your time. In the meantime, you won't be published, you won't be taken seriously, and your career will be over before it's begun.
So what? It's my life.
Ultimately, the main body of it is about a person who's not connecting with people on a very basic level for clear reasons at the front. She loses the one man she's ever loved, which is her father, at a very young age. That I would tend to think would cause a very tender soul to close down.
I can't imagine another actress who can bring both the emotion and the intellect to the character which is needed.
It was just a wonderful thing for us because we knew that Ellie was in the best possible hands. And many, many times I would turn to Carl and say, Jodie is bringing Ellie to life. And this made him tremendously happy.
Well, when I first read the book and was considering it as a movie, I saw it as a tremendous challenge. It's a fantastic story that's rooted in reality. If you read the novel, it spans years and countries and different planets and parts of the universe, and spans not only years but light years. The scope and the scale of the movie was probably the biggest I've ever done.
Arecibo, Puerto Rico. The cast and crew of Contact traveled to the largest radio telescope in the world.
That stuff. Just have that one light on there and leave it pointing onto the turret, and as it gets darker, I'll have you light them.
Built inside a huge mountain crater, the dish is far away from the noisy radio interference that can hinder the progress of SETI researchers.
What we're doing is using large radio telescopes to listen for radio signals. Now, they may be signals that they're using for their own perpetration because we're really primitive as a technology.
What do you think, Doc Garraway? Isn't she a beauty?
It'll do. I work on a project called SETI.
Search for extraterrestrial intelligence? Wow. And that is out there.
I love this. I mean, here's a guy looking the way he is, like this, in the middle of the jungle, and you're talking about SETI and...
Love story and that losing ideologies.
Matthew McConaughey, the star of A Time to Kill, plays Palmer Joss, a non-denominational reverend who becomes the spiritual advisor to the president. Joss falls in love with Ellie. It is through their relationship that Sagan's lifelong fascination with religion versus science is made literal.
Look over to where Joss is sitting over there.
Science is sometimes, I know, attacked for supposed arrogance and discipline around. Because instead of trying to impose our preconceptions, our predispositions on the universe, we are open for the universe to see what the universe has to offer.
We got to have a kind of, a special Carl seminar. And he sat down, he had his slide projector and his stuff, and he sat down and sort of goes through the cosmos.
It was very inspiring to hear the scientific truths behind the universe, our galaxy.
It was very captivating performance by a man who was gravely ill but inspired, and followed by a question and answer session that went on into the late hours of the evening. No one wanted to leave.
It seemed like he enjoyed that, of listening to your question and really being intrigued by it. And there was never a dumb question.
I think at one point he was eating something and he held this fork, full of food, and he held it there for like 20 minutes while he kept talking. I realized he had totally forgotten that he had a bite of food in his hand. And I know that that's how I can be when I'm talking about movies. And that's how he is when he's talking about science.
And there was passion, too, because these were questions of religion and science and the ways in which they collide with each other.
I was learning and learning, going hand in hand in hand all the way.
I think the great thing that this movie does is it tells you that religion isn't on the other side. There are some religious figures that put spirituality or the idea of a higher power somehow on the other side of science, when in fact we're all involved in the same quest, which is to find out about our origins and to find out of whether we're alone or not.
Is the world fundamentally a better place because of science and technology? We shop at home, we surf the web, but at the same time, we feel emptier, lonelier, and more cut off from each other than at any other time in history.
October 1996, the Very Large Array in New Mexico. Sagan described the sight of the 27 radio flowers straining towards the sky. The dishes are perfectly aligned to capture even the smallest detectable radio signal.
Let's get him over here. Let's roll the crane in.
1, 2, 3, go.
The weather is not cooperating, but it doesn't seem to matter. This is the moment when the signal is received.
And she's gonna lean back to that position, and that's when when she starts making her move, we just start making our move. Kind of that nice slow speed like we did.
It isn't so much an image from the book as much as it is a tone from the book and a sound that the book had.
She heard, as always, a kind of static, a continuous, echoing, random noise. Once she had felt she heard a kind of singing, fading tantalizingly in and out, lying just beyond her ability to convince herself that there was something really there.
The way communication is achieved with this other light, in a sense, was inspiring to me as a way to bring another element into the movie, which is very important in this, and that is, it's not just a movie about images, it's a movie about sound as well.
And action!
Talk to me, guys.
Partially polarized set of moving pulses, amplitude modulated.
Lock, systems check out, signal across the board. What's the frequency?
4.4623 gigahertz.
Point source confirmed. Whatever it is, it ain't local.
Position?
I checked interferometry somewhere in Lyra, I think.
Vega?
Can't be. It's only 26 light years away.
Who are we gonna call now?
The president made a brief statement calling the message from Vega one of the most stunning insights into our universe.
Attendance at religious services has risen a dramatic 39% in recent days.
Everyone would respond differently to the notion that there might be intelligent life somewhere in outer space and that it's talking to us in some complex way. And each one of the points of view is a very reasonable one, and that's what I think is most exciting about this movie, because my character, who's concerned that it's quite possible these aliens might not necessarily have the most benevolent intentions.
So I'll come right to the point, may I? Your having sent this announcement all over the world may well constitute a breach of national security.
This isn't a person-to-person call.
Scientists who've worked all their lives, of course, would be excited by the notion that they're all going to come down and start, you know, eating prepackaged candy and sharing secrets of the universe, and you know, I think it says more about human nature and the diversity of human nature, which is kind of what this movie's about.
The message was a kind of mirror in which each person saw his or her own beliefs challenged or confirmed. It was taken as evidence from many gods, or one god, or none. Some thought it was from God, and some from the devil.
We felt that what would happen is very quickly after this becomes a story, that there would be the believers and the non-believers, and the most wild mix of humanity would gather someplace. And the obvious choice was, well, they would go to the telescopes in New Mexico and it would, you know, gather there as if it was a shrine.
We want to shoot in about 10 minutes, so we've got to organize this and get to our position.
3,000 extras answering notices in local papers poured into a deserted corner of George Air Force Base. Part tent revival, part Grateful Dead concert, this wild scene captures the public reaction to the alien message.
Well, this is the scene where everybody is gathered to see what's going to be happening here. Are there aliens landing?
All different tribes here today.
She's a die-hard Trekkie. I'd seen it in the newspaper advertised, and I thought, gosh, this is the perfect thing for me.
Anyone seen Elvis?
Typically, Hollywood might reduce a scene like this to make it more manageable. But in Zemeckis' hands, it became much bigger.
I can't help myself, you know, I can't, for some reason I'm attracted to these very large movies at this point in my career. That might change, you know, we'll see. But right now I'm figuring, well, you know, this is what I do.
I can never really imagine how big Bob's ideas are, and I'm constantly surprised that I can't. Because I would think after all these years that I would somehow get it.
You know, every once in a while I walk onto the set and I just stare and I go, look at all these people, look at all this stuff. Who thought this up? He knows how to marry the epic qualities of filmmaking with the very human, small, subtle elements of filmmaking, too.
He also thinks in multiple layers. As the filmmaking process continues, those ideas and layers continue to open up.
That Ellie is very intimidated by this.
An alien intelligence is going to be more advanced, and that means efficiency functioning on multiple levels and in multiple dimensions.
Yes, of course. Where's the primer?
You'll see the primer. There it was all the time, staring you in the face. Buried within the message itself
is the key to decoding it. Right here.
On a soundstage in Los Angeles, Zemeckis works out the White House conference where the meaning of the alien signal is disclosed. The scene is complicated.
And action video.
Those look like engineering schematics, almost like blueprints.
It is our belief that the message contains instructions for building some kind of machine.
A machine?
It might turn out to be some kind of a transport.
Making it more complicated is the fact that along with James Woods, Angela Bassett, Jodie Foster, Tom Skerritt, Rob Lowe, and Matthew McConaughey is one more unseen star.
The president met with his top advisors today regarding the latest reports of some progress. The official line remains a cautious one.
This is a series of shots that we did where Bob asked us to create a character who we couldn't, by sort of more traditional ways, get in the film, and that's the actual current president of the United States, Bill Clinton. So this is the original video of Clinton speaking in the cabinet room. And what we did is shot a plate with our current day actors with an empty chair ready for Clinton. We took a stand-in's body and then cut Clinton's head off, placing it on the body, and mixed that back in. And you can see the original video of Clinton. What we did is we cut a mat for him, used the mat to simply slip him into another scene.
So we weren't really changing what he was saying, we were changing really the location he was in.
Is everybody in?
So we're taking him out of the Rose Garden, putting him into the press room.
As you can see, we'll mix the two together, seamlessly blend him into a new background. So as I flip back and forth here, you can see that we've actually changed the check pattern on his tie, the color of his suit in general, and also mixed in James Woods and some of the other characters in the film.
There's some really complicated shots within those sequences, and they just go by so seamlessly. I don't think anyone's really going to know that he's not really there and was never near the set. So it's pretty exciting.
That's one of the key things that really excited me about working on this project, that I'll be in a scene with the president.
Is everybody in?
First rule in government spending. Why build one when you can have two twice the price?
The character is one of the richest and most powerful men in the world anyway, a kind of Howard Hughesian sort of fella. And, of course, like all such people, he wants to leave his stamp on this earth. He finally, from the Russian government, gets given Mir to exist in, and the reason he gets it is because, like, you know, anybody who's rich and powerful has a downside as well, and the downside to him is he got cancer.
It's quite simple, really. The low oxygen, zero gravity environment is the only thing keeping the cancer from eating me alive.
The difficulty is, of course, you've got to find some form, some way of making it weightless.
The idea of the shot, John, is that you're closer to the camera and you're not completely upside down, and your legs are up sort of like where Bud's head is.
Push ready.
Ready.
And
action. My little room has one hell of a view. They still want an American to go, Doctor. Want to take a ride?
If you're going to build a giant machine of alien design that had to be huge and dangerous and moving and scary, and so the idea of a machine that was 3 times the size of the Empire State Building, cost $3 trillion, and the biggest construction endeavor in the history of man, was what we decided to do.
We're supposed to be right now 1,000 feet above the surface of the Pacific Ocean, and so if you were to walk out there and look down, all that blue screen is really supposed to be an open area, and that pod will get dropped down into this giant vortex of spinning rings.
Kind of slowly approach here, then you come over here, right, Don? And look over, and the camera comes over, and we do this big vertigo shot where you look down at all the, you know, the ocean is 1,000 feet down.
There's a lot of stuff that I had to be involved in this film that I've just never done before. And I've made a lot of movies, but I've never made a film that had, you know, a lot of blue screen.
You saw something move, you look, and then I get to, you know, then I see it, then it's got form.
Okay.
So it's like, there was
more stages.
Yeah, more stages,
okay.
Right.
I'm standing on a stage in Warner Hollywood with, you know...
She's spinning which way on the turntable? Putting us this faintest sense of a reflection here might be really
that'd be really cool, yeah.
So you have to embrace the technicianship of the film and be able to kind of push it away from your view and say, this is not happening. There's nothing interesting about technical filmmaking unless there's humanity. And humanity is everything. And this film does have a very, very strong, very deep human core to it.
Over 90 people working 3 shifts executed Verreaux's designs for the machine.
To give you some idea, when we started Forrest Gump, we had about 120 shots, I think, or so, and we ended up on this show in the end with over 500.
There were miniatures that redefined the term miniature, computer graphics, and real-life elements, all combining to realize Carl Sagan's vision of an intergalactic ship that can travel at the speed of light. To fuel their imaginations, the production team visited Cape Canaveral, looking for the details that would make their spacecraft believable.
The vehicle assembly building, which is 500 feet tall, and what does that look like in various kinds of Florida light? And that's only a third the height of the machine. And then looking across the grasslands there to see what all the launch complexes look like when they were 2-3 miles away, and how does all that structure look in the light, and then try and play that back on the machine.
Mechanical? Go. Electrical?
Go.
Dynamics?
Dynamics is...
I can confirm the walkway retraction.
Systems? Ellie, we are go for closure. You all set in there?
And here.
Jerry Griffin, former flight director at NASA and a veteran of the Apollo program, was brought on board as technical consultant for the control room scenes.
There's really 2 things that he keeps checking with me on is, does it look right?
So he just watches it when the second...
Sound right.
Copy that, 35%.
Mechanical?
We're good. 40%.
As we go through the rehearsals and all that, I'm reminded of the days when we did so many simulations trying to get ready to go to the moon.
I just don't much see how we can make it on this next web. I think you guys ought to continue to work.
They both kind of, to the observer, look like chaos.
Oxidizer tanks in the 2nd and 3rd stages now have pressurized.
But at the end of the day, you get this final product that comes out right. I guess in a way, what I really come back to is that even in the real control center, during the real flights, knowing that you're on and that other people are depending on you, in a way, you are a performer.
70%.
People, we have intermittent comm, but we are still go. Initiate secondary drive systems.
I read you.
Initiating auxiliary booster sequence. We're go for ignition.
Initiate drop sequence. On my mark. 10, 9,
Power transfer.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
have been searching for radio signals from other civilizations on planets beyond our own solar system. We're not interested only to satisfy our intellectual curiosity or our sense of adventure. We have at the back of our minds the possibility that we might learn something useful about our own planet.
December 1996. As the cast and crew work out a complicated shot, they hear the news. Carl Sagan has passed away from the cancer he had been fighting for so long.
I was very saddened for the obvious reasons, but also because I had, I think Carl would have been very proud of the movie, and I'd wished that he'd been able to see the final product because he really was so passionate about it. You know, I was also looking forward to, you know, hearing his critique at the end of the movie too, and I was, you know, I always had that log in the back of my mind as one of the great moments of my life, you know, when Carl was going to finally see what I've done to his novel.
The idea, is there life out there on other planets? Over time, you know, it started out in man's ego. I am the center of the universe. Earth is it. The sun goes around us. Well, I mean, we're like down here in the far right corner of our galaxy, and there's hundreds of millions of galaxies. That idea, that's inspiring to me. I think that'll be inspiring to everybody to think, well, what is out there?
You know, one of the great reasons to make a film like this, not just as an actor, but also as a filmmaker, is to hope that, you know, there's some 11 or 12-year-old girl out there who looks up at the sky and says, oh my God, that's Jupiter. And that somehow that thrusts her forward to understand what she does and who she is.
There's something tremendously poignant about the idea that at the end of Carl's life, he was given the biggest canvas of all, the opportunity to tell a story and to convey the ideas that were most important to him to the largest audience of all.